What does the word gutsy mean to you?
For me, it means putting yourself out there.
You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. Whether you need an inspirational pick-me-up or a swift kick in the mental ass, the Gutsy Podcast is your bi-weekly guide to getting out of your head and back into action. I'm Laura Ora, branding and mindset coach for female entrepreneurs, CEO of Works & Co., and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. It's time to fuel your gutsy. You're trying all of the marketing stuff. Social media, email lists, SEO, reels, funnels, hashtags, you name it, you have tried it. But something still feels like it's missing. Marketing is a machine, and it's easy to get folded into all the things while seeing little to no results. So today, we're chatting with marketing strategist Tara Reid about hustle-free ways to market and grow your business, even if you're an introvert. Tara is a seasoned business and marketing strategist, renowned for her expertise in empowering entrepreneurs to build sustainable, evergreen marketing strategies. With over 17 years of online entrepreneurship experience, Tara is a trusted guide for heart-centered, introverted, and multi-passionate entrepreneurs seeking to achieve lasting success without compromising their authenticity. Before we chat with Tara, I want to remind you that you don't have to build your business alone. Look, I know the ups and downs that come with entrepreneurship. I know that the cycle of thoughts, feelings, and actions that swirl around in your mind are often the things that stop you from moving forward. And that you often feel like you're doing all of this shit alone. And this is why I've created the Gutsy Collective Inner Circle. This is a group of women in business, driven women in their careers that know that there is more, are ready to make a change and to make the shifts. This is a space to get support, to get clarity, to get answers through group coaching, through mindset classes, through quarterly planning. Like, if you want to get out of your own way and you want to be alongside other people doing it, the Gutsy Collective is 1,000% for you. You can learn more about the group and sign up by going to lauraora.com and click on Join the Gutsy Collective at the top of the page. Tara, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So I was doing a little digging before our recording, and I see, am I correct in the year that you started your business in 07?
Yes, my very first online business was in '07.
So we are business year twins. I also started my first
Oh, that's
business in
awesome.
2007. So we're both in the 16 and a half ish year game. Which I don't know about you, but it's been quite a wild journey every single step of the way. So tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. What's led you to where you are now?
It's definitely been a long one with lots of pivots and changes and growth. So in 2007, I started my very first business, which I initially started as a hobby. It was a handmade jewelry business. And I ended up growing that business to a six-figure business and ended up selling it. But in the meantime, I had other handmade business owners like asking me for help because I did have a background in marketing and SEO. So I started offering services to other people and found that I really loved helping others with their business, more so than I did working on my own jewelry business at the time. I got a little bit burnout on that. So that was my first kind of shift into working with other entrepreneurs. And then I just leaned all into that and shifted from the handmade space to focusing on service providers, because I initially started services as a virtual assistant, like offering every single service you could imagine. And then I also had a Pinterest management agency for a little while because I really fell in love with Pinterest and how it's a very introvert friendly, hustle free kind of method for getting more eyes on your content. Um, and then I moved into coaching slash strategy. And that's really where I excel and what I love to do is really helping people who want to build a business, but they're feeling burnt out. They're struggling to be consistent. They're doing things that they don't want to actually be doing. And like I initially created my business for flexibility and freedom. And I've been where a lot of people are, where I was doing things I really didn't enjoy and didn't want to do. And it got to the point where I said to myself, I'm either going to figure out a way to make this work for me that is not so stressful and energy draining every single day, or I'm just going to stop and I'm going to go back to a 9 to 5 because at least I know what to expect and I don't have to put myself out there every single day in ways that I just don't want to do.
Yeah, I hear that loud and clear because, in my story, I often share like the business that I created ran me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you just fall into this like this bucket of having to do everything, all the shoulds of what you need to do and all of these marketing tactics and what everyone else is doing and what's working and what's trending and all this stuff. And it's freaking overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be really overwhelming, and the burnout and the like complete and utter shutdown from that is really real. So what was the kind of that shift that you made then to lean into really having this business now that you're loving?
I think for me, like I experienced an 8 month long period of burnout with the jewelry business. I was making everything, I was doing all the marketing, like I couldn't keep up with the demand. And I was just working myself to a hospital visit, basically. I had carpal tunnel in my wrist because I was working so much trying to keep up and it just was not sustainable. And yeah, it resulted in an 8 month long period of burnout where I just let the business sit. And then I decided to sell it. And experiencing that, I started to recognize the signs when I moved into services and using social media to market myself. And I was doing reels and videos and all the things. And because I was told that's what you have to do. And so I did them. And then I started to realize this isn't working. This is not sustainable for me at all. This is not fun. Um, I have something has to change. I feel this burnout is going to come again very quickly. And I had what I call it my self-acceptance moment where I was like, I'm an introvert and I just need to own that. Like, I don't need to push myself to do reels every day. They're not fun. They're awkward. They're not even generating results because they are so awkward. I have to figure out ways that I can market and grow my business that actually tie into my strengths and actually feel less energy draining. Because if I am just draining my energy every single day, like I'm going to hit burnout again.
Absolutely. So that's a kind of a great transition into, today we're talking about hustle-free marketing, right? Showing up in ways that are not draining your energy. So what was that process like for you to recognize what was draining you versus what really lit you up?
Yeah, I definitely had to do an inventory and an audit of what I was doing and not just look at like the time I was spending, but energy is a big part of it. Like, yeah, I can probably create reels quickly if I map them out and have a plan and but the energy it takes from me, like if I was to sit down, I know I've heard somebody say like, "Oh, create 30 reels in 60 minutes." And I'm like, I could do that, but at the end of the 60 minutes, I would be like useless for days because I would just be so energy drained. So for me, it was really looking at what my strengths were. And I mean, I had this background and love for SEO, and I was like, why am I not leaning into that more? Like, why am I forcing myself to be on social media? So I actually left social media in June of 2022. I finally left for good all social media platforms.
Wow. That's a gutsy move in its own, right? Like I know a lot of people are listening right now going like, I could never, right? Like, so the question that follows that up immediately then is how are you growing your business? How are you getting people to know who you are?
Yeah, so I've gone all in on organic, evergreen kind of marketing methods. So for me, it's a lot of SEO, so driving people from search engines. I tie in blog content. I tie in Pinterest. And then my ultimate goal is for all of those methods to kind of lead people to my email list. And that is really where I'm nurturing my audience, I'm delivering value. I have evergreen sales funnels set up that do the selling on autopilot. So I don't even have to think about selling as much. Um, and really leaning into that has just felt so freeing because it now allows me more flexibility to like do other things that I want to do. And I do realize all of those are kind of long-term strategies, which I actually think is a major benefit because if it's a long-term strategy, that means you're going to get long-term results. But I think it's also important to add something that gives you kind of quicker wins. So for me, it's like, what can I add to this organic stack of my marketing? And so for me, I speak at a lot of virtual summits. I even have ran my own virtual summit. Actually 8 virtual summits at this point I've hosted and ran. I participate in a lot of bundles and other collab opportunities like podcast guesting. I also launched my own podcast just so I would have more content coming out and be able to reach my audience in a way that feels good to me. I find it so much easier to record an audio podcast episode versus showing up on video.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I hope that everyone listening today is hearing that there are options, right? There are different ways. You don't have to do all, be all, show up on every single platform every single day to be able to grow your business. So let's take a little bit of a sidestep here and just kind of address the elephant in the room about marketing as a whole and how it feels pushy and it's salesy, and I don't want to oversell people and I don't want to undersell people and I don't really know how to do this right. Talk to me about that whole kind of feels like junk in our brains
Mm-hmm.
around marketing.
I definitely feel that. And I will say, even after almost 17 years, I still struggle with that sometimes. I think what makes it easier for me is actually allowing evergreen organic methods to sell for me. So I don't have to actually like write a salesy email and press send unless I'm feeling like it, like live launching. I try to focus a lot more on evergreen. Like I think this year so far, 60% of my sales have come from evergreen methods that are just running and set up in the background through funnels and email sequences and my content that directs people to those funnels, which feels really good. So the other 40% came from the few like new launches or programs that I've created this year. But yeah, to feel like over half my sales have came from me not doing anything in the moment. Like, yeah, I put time and energy into the funnel maybe last year, but it just feels so much better to see those sales notifications come in when you're like, I didn't have to like be super salesy and push for that sale. Like I naturally focused on nurturing my audience and then just offering. I find that if I focus on selling as a service, so it's not like I'm ever pushy with my messaging or like, oh, you have to buy this now. It's more like I'm very confident in this offer. And if you are struggling with this, and this, here's why you should grab it and why it's going to help you.
Amazing. And look, that you do the work once, and yes, you need to kind of nurture it and touch on it from time to time, but it's working with you instead of you having to do even more too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's working with you in two ways. One, it's alleviating the extra time and effort that it takes to create and launch things, but two, it's taking one of those pain points off, right? Like if you're not one of those people that likes to really push offers all the time, then that's a great option. I just to clarify, in case anyone might be a little bit new to this concept, can you give us an example of what one of those offers with an evergreen, like what an evergreen is, what a funnel is? Can you give us like the architecture of what that might look like?
Yeah, definitely. So I it's probably my signature offer at this point. It's called the Introvertpreneur Club. So it's for introverts. There's lots of like, it was previously a membership and I changed it this year. So now it's a lifetime access program. But there's still like tons of support from me every single month. And I have a freebie that is how to market your business as an introvert webinar. So it's an evergreen webinar. Once they opt in, they land on the watch page where the video is. And then underneath that, they're given the opportunity to sign up for the club right then and there for 72 hours because typically the club is closed. It's only open for 2 weeks in May and 2 weeks in October. So between that, I was like, I want to like I don't want to have to launch it all the time. Twice per year is enough. But I do want to have a way that I can like allow people to come into the club. So that's why I set up this funnel and offered people who watch this webinar like you're obviously an introvert, you're interested in ways to market your business that are more introvert friendly. The club is really like an amazing group of people and support and where you should be. So I'm giving you 72 hours to sign up. Otherwise, you may have to wait until the next time we publicly open the doors. And that's converted really well. Like I have several in those 72 hours, I send several emails like, here's the behind the scenes of the club. Here's exactly what's included and why it's beneficial. Like we do a live workshop every month. We have Voxer office hours twice per month and access to me and answer any of your questions. So it's really about just putting the offer out there as an opportunity for somebody.
Amazing. So these evergreen, that model this is the program that's kind of working on its own without you having to do a lot of extra work, right? Of course, you have to set it up and put that work into it. But this is guiding people through a process into a program with a lot of ease and simplicity. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. And I will share too, like before I changed that funnel and like the offer to be a more of a program, I had the same freebie, like the free webinar set up in a funnel for the membership. And I offered on for 72 hours to join as an annual member. And then that funnel was a little different because there were different membership options. So if somebody went through the 72 hours and they didn't sign up as an annual member, then they were added to a sequence where I offered them a deal on their first month, kind of like a downsell offer if somebody didn't take the year, because I know a year is a big commitment, but it was converting really well for, so I left it at that. And then if somebody went through that email sequence and didn't sign up for their first month at a discount, then I was eventually planning on adding a second email sequence for those people who hadn't signed up yet, to say, like, I know that this is really going to be beneficial for you. And I know it's a commitment to sign up for a membership and have a recurring expense. So I'd love to give you a 30-day free access to check it out and access all the support. I never ended up setting that up just because I ended up switching things, but that's kind of how you can stack offers within a funnel too.
Mm. And see, I want to reiterate that this is one of the benefits to working with someone that specializes in marketing, because there are so many different paths, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when I start thinking about email sequences, my brain literally shuts down, right? Like that is not my area of awesome. I do not perform well there. If that comes down to me, it's not getting built, right? Like it's just not where it's not where I excel. So working with someone like you who has that mindset, who has that experience, can be incredibly beneficial. And while it may be an investment up front, when that stuff is set up, it's set up, right? Other than fine
Mm-hmm.
tuning things along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will say for any funnel, I did try to like, when I first set it up, I would check it out like maybe monthly, check out the stats, make sure that I'm like happy with how things are running and the amount like people going through and the numbers. But once you have it set up and it's working pretty well, then I would just like every quarter just go check out and make sure that, if anything else needs to be tweaked, like maybe an email subject line could be tweaked to increase open rates. Maybe you realize, maybe I need to add more emails. Maybe people need more time to get to know me before they say yes for this offer. But yeah, they're so amazing once they're set up. It just, I think a lot of people don't do it because it does take a lot of time initially to like create all these pieces and put them together in a strategic way. But yeah, it's kind of like SEO in a way. It's like it's very time consuming and it feels overwhelming and hard, but the results are long term. It's going to last forever once you do dig into SEO and like optimize your website and your sales pages.
Yeah, because, and I think you mentioned this earlier, like creating a reel, while that does have that opportunity to work for you long term ish sometimes, but it's kind
Typically
of,
not.
it's, yeah, it's kind of like a fire, it's kind of like a firework, right? It can go up and out, you can get a great response, and then eventually it fizzles out in a way. Whereas the time and effort to set up something like a funnel, the evergreen stuff, that is consistently working for you. And if it's set up very well, growing and expanding for you as well as time goes by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the same thing too with like Pinterest and blogging, like the pins on Pinterest that are the top ones for me that are driving. I think the top pin is like consistently driving about 200 to 300 people just from that one pin every month to my blog post. And that pin was pinned to Pinterest like 2 years ago. The blog
Mm,
post was written like 3 years ago, and it's still getting me that many new people to my website and hopefully onto my email list or in a funnel.
wow, amazing. Just because I'm kind of curious and I realize this is different for everybody, so this may not apply to everyone, disclaimer, but is there anything that you've tried or set up that you were surprised that just like didn't work at all? You were like, absolutely not, this has got to go.
Once I leaned into everything, like the organic and long term stuff, I don't think there was anything where I was like, oh, this isn't working. I think for me, it was always going back to the social media. Like I tried to, even when I left Instagram, I was like, okay, well, maybe, I'm not going to leave social media entirely. Maybe I'll like try to be on LinkedIn and use that as my social media platform. And that didn't last long. Yeah. So I think for me, it just always goes back to social media and the different platforms and just like even threads. When Instagram came out with threads, I was like all excited. I was like, this is amazing. I'm loving the energy here. I was consistent with it for maybe 2 weeks and then I haven't been back on it.
Yep. Yep. I hear you. One of the greatest benefits of building your business alongside other people that totally get who you are is not just the camaraderie, not just the inspiration, not just the clarity, but a space to be able to bounce shit off of one another. How many times have you been sitting around and you're just beating your head up against the wall wondering, is this the right thing to do? I could use a second eye. I don't have anyone that I can call. The Gutsy Collective is a space for you to be able to do this. It's access to other people. It's resources, coaching, answers, clarity, someone else that fucking gets it. So if you're ready to not only shift what's happening in your own mind, but get the resources and support to grow your business, go to lauraora.com and click on the Join the Gutsy Collective at the top of the page. All right, Tara's got great nuggets of wisdom to share with you, so let's get into the second half of today's episode. So let's talk about some hustle-free ways to market your business. I know if you're listening, get a pen and paper. This is the time to take some notes. So what are some things that you recommend?
So the four things that I usually recommend, and this is kind of what's covered in my free webinar that I mentioned too. So email marketing for sure, and whether that is focusing on evergreen sales funnels or whether it's just consistently emailing your list and like really focusing on driving more people to your email list. Pinterest, of course, for traffic generation. It's a definitely underutilized tool. So there's a lot less competition. No matter what niche or type of business you have, there's so many fewer entrepreneurs using Pinterest than there is like Instagram or Facebook. So even though it's long term, it's definitely beneficial. Also, blogging. I think if you use blogging with Pinterest together, that's like a powerhouse duo that can then lead to your email list. But then, actually, shockingly, the fourth method that I recommend or talk about is actually social media. But the way that I think a lot of introverts, or especially people who maybe don't like being on social media, might need to change up the way that they do social media. So, if I was ever going to go back on social media, and I will never say never, but I don't see it being likely. But if I ever did, um, I would focus more on the content, like creating content, because I feel like if you're somebody who is maybe introverted, like, showing up on videos is really draining, go all in on creating content that resonates, that speaks to your ideal audience. I'm big on attracting people and attracting the right people to you versus having to constantly like go out and hustle and do all these things that you just don't want to do. So I think if you focus your social media more on creating great content, it's going to bring the right people to you and to your account, versus like if you're constantly forcing yourself to engage or forcing yourself to send X number of DMs to kind of network. And that just is really energy draining. Then don't do that. Just go focus more on your content and make it really stand out.
I love that because listen, there's a million different tactics, right? And so if sending cold DMs is not your thing, then don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If creating reels every day is not your thing, then don't do it. It's really about finding what does work well for you, what is sustainable, and what can you stay consistent with. And what's your kind of opinion on how many different things? Because I think in marketing, it can feel like, well, I have to have this and I need to have that and I need to do that. What's kind of your take on, is there a sweet spot of how many things work well or best, or what's your guidance there?
Yeah, I always say, because I know I want people to avoid burnout at all possible, or like getting on the content creation hamster wheel and that causing burnout. So definitely I always say to start with two. Start with two kind of, these are where I'm going to be. This is what I'm creating content for. This is my focus. And then you can kind of layer and stack in other methods that will work with what you're already doing. So for me, like I started with blogging and then I added Pinterest as a second layer. And then I realized, okay, this is generating traffic, but it's not really getting me results, because once they come to my website, read a blog post, like they're not, then they're leaving. Like I'm not, it's not really driving results. So that's when I shifted and was like, okay, I need to focus on a place where I want people to end up. And that was definitely my email list. So then I started being more strategic about like, what freebies can I create, that my audience will be interested in. Like right now, I have like 10 free resources for different, because I'm definitely a multi passionate too. I have like 50 to 60 digital products and offers and programs and stuff. Um, so I wanted to really go all in on my email and make sure that I was creating a freebie for each like offer suite that I had or topic that I kind of teach or talk about. And that way I can really segment my email list. And I know based on tags, like what they signed up for, which tells me what they're interested in, what maybe offers or digital products of mine would be relevant to them. So it's not like I just send a ton of emails to my entire list. It's a lot more strategic and kind of like structured and planned out than that.
That makes sense. It's giving people more of what they want. I'll tell you what, this is total side rail here. Nothing drives me more batshit crazy than when I'm in an email and they're like, hey, buy this program, buy this shirt. Here's this thing to purchase. And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing that I want. And you click on that and it takes you to like the homepage. And then you have to go on a scavenger hunt to find it. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm absolutely out. So that just reminded me of what you were just talking about, like being very intentional about why people came in the first place and nurturing them in that space instead of being like, and here's this and this and this and this, because guess what? People are they're bouncing, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah, that the one other thing that annoys me with email and why I think like having a strategy and tags and segmenting your list is so important. I can't tell you the times I have bought something or signed up for a program, and then I'm continuously getting the emails to sign up for
Yes.
it. I'm like,
Yes.
why didn't you tag me that I've already purchased and exclude me from this? Like, it's so annoying.
Yes, I agree. There's a program that I signed up for a couple of weeks ago, a tool. And I'm still on there. Hey, we have, if you want to sign up, we're having this free webinar. And I'm like, I've literally been using your tool for 6 months.
Yeah, it's
I
not a great experience.
it's really not. When we think about that strategy, what is kind of the bones of creating a marketing strategy? I know there's a lot of different facets that we could go into, but just kind of in general, what are some good bones that we could be working with?
I think the big piece is really getting, I think it starts with clarity, like clarity around your offers, your audience, what they're struggling with, like the messaging piece and having clarity around that. That's really the foundation of everything you're going to do. So if you don't necessarily have that in place, and I'm not talking about niching. I should say that because I am multi-passionate. I'm not a fan of niching. If it's hard for you to niche down, then maybe you don't need to. But if you're somebody who's like, I want to just do one thing, I want to like just talk about one topic, then fine. It's probably going to be easy for you to niche down. If you've tried niching down, like I have some clients who are like, oh, I'm changing completely like every 3 months. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just like create separate like value ladders of the different things? But they're kind of stuck in this mindset that I have to niche down to one thing, but they're so multi-passionate that they get bored after a couple of weeks. So if that's you, don't niche. The way I do it is like I niche down each offer. So not my entire business, not like each offer is specific. I have clarity around each offer, what it does, who it's for, what they're struggling with, what the benefits are. And then that allows me, because I do all of this tagging and segmenting to my list, really tailor the emails to those specific people. So I feel like the clarity piece is essential, clarity around your offers, who your audience is. Um, and then making sure that you're able to segment your list so that you can speak clearly about each offer to each person. Like for my example, a lot of my stuff is around introverts, but I also have offers that are around creating digital products or creating an evergreen sales funnel. And not everyone who wants to create a sales funnel is also an introvert. So I really need to, like, if I'm sending an email, like, hey, introverts, like, and I send it to my entire list, a lot of people are going to be like, this isn't me. This isn't relevant. I'm unsubscribing immediately because what you're talking about, like, this isn't me. So that's where the tagging and the structure really comes into play and the clarity.
I love the permission there, right? Like, not that anybody needs permission, but sometimes needs to hear that it's okay if niching is not your thing. Like, it's really just about finding what works for you. Now, I will say, and this kind of piggybacks into my other question here is, what if it's not working? What if we're putting a lot of effort into it? Well, what if we do have some strategy in place? What if we are consistent in our messaging and it's kind of crickets? No one's buying. What's typically going on and what do we need to do about that?
So I'm big on doing an audit and looking at numbers. I'm a big numbers person when it comes to, like, for example, if I have a funnel and I'm like, I'm not getting a sales from this funnel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all the data that I have available. I'm going to go into the email sequence. I'm going to see, are people just not opening the emails in the sequence? If that's the case, then I need to play with the subject lines. If it's that people are opening, but they're not actually clicking, then I want to look at the email itself. Is it maybe too long? Is there too much text? Is it the messaging not clear about what I'm talking about or the offer that I'm leading them to? Um, and then if it's okay, people are clicking, they're just not buying, then I'm going to first look at the sales page. Why are they landing on this page and not buying? Um, is there something here that I need to fix? And then there's lots of tools. Like I use Hotjar to see like where on the page are people like dropping off. Maybe the sales page is too long. Maybe I need to make it clearer. Maybe I need to spruce up the design and make it more eye-catching or the hook. And I will say, like, I always change one thing at a time, because if you
Mm.
change everything, you're not going to know like what actually drove the change in the results. But yeah, just looking at the data that you have available and then figuring out how you can strategically use that data to make changes or improvements. Because usually I think a lot of us are like, oh, it's not selling, the offer must be crap and people just don't want it, which is usually not the case. Like if it's a good offer, you were excited about it when you created it. It's usually something somewhere in the flow that is causing people not to buy. And then I also will say, if you do everything and you're like, people are still not buying, you may just be attracting the wrong people. So if I had an evergreen funnel and nobody was buying, and I've checked all the stats, like people are clicking, they're just not buying. I've changed the sales page. I've made sure the messaging is clear. I'm 100% confident with it, and people still aren't buying. Then maybe it's not that the offer is crap. Maybe it's that, the entrance to that funnel, the freebie, is attracting the wrong people.
And that's all. It's such tinkering, right? Like I look at this as such like little tiny turns of the dial.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you pointed out about changing one thing at a time and then leave it alone, right? So what's a good kind of time frame for testing things like that?
Usually, like if it's in a funnel, I will not necessarily look at the time, but like how many new people have come through the funnel to see that change. So for me, I like to say like at least 50 people. When I make a change, I would like to have at least 50 people, new people come through that have seen that change and then see what the conversion rate or the percent, like the open rates and things are for those new 50 people before I change something else.
Okay, gotcha. And how much time, I know I'm kind of in the weeds here, but I think that these are things that people think about. How much time do you recommend spending on marketing every week in your business?
That's a really good question. I mean, I probably spend a lot more than I should just because I love creating content. So a lot of my marketing is definitely content based. Like for blogging, I'm creating content. For the podcast, I'm creating content. I mean, it depends. Once you have funnels set up, if you have like a consistent schedule, like for me, if I was batching blog posts and working ahead, it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 hours per week. Typically, I would say probably at least 50% of your however many hours you work that week are going to be spent on creating content or marketing or the strategy. Um, it just depends. Like for me, when I was doing social media, it took me forever. Like I spent so much time on social media content and forcing myself to engage for an hour every day. And it was definitely a time suck and energy drain.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where that hustle piece comes into place, right? Where you're just consistently forcing yourself to do things and then getting really frustrated when it's just not working. It's not
Mm-hmm.
converting, like when we've got that kind of gnarly energy into it, it's not going to feel great to receive that back in return. So just being very honest about, okay, what's working, what's not, what do I love doing, what do I don't, what
Mm-hmm.
needs to be delegated, right? Where do I need to bring in an expert? And then give yourself permission to focus on just a couple of things instead of trying to do all and be all every single place on the internet because it's a
Mm-hmm.
really big place out there.
Yeah. And I'll go back to kind of just touch on like the power of blogging, of Pinterest, of email marketing is also that you can batch those things pretty quickly. And there's no like active piece that you have to do. Like with social media, if you also feel like you have to engage, like you have to respond to comments, there's not really any of that when it comes to email, blogging, Pinterest. You can batch like months at a time if you wanted to just sit down and be like, this is my marketing content creation day. I'm just going to like batch out as much as I can and then get it scheduled, which I definitely try to do sometimes I don't have to feel like I have to keep creating content. I have a bank of content that I can always go back to.
What are some other hustle free techniques that you have in your back pocket?
I think a big thing that and I actually just did a workshop on it yesterday. So one thing that I'm implementing, and I'm really excited about, is what I call a long-term evergreen email sequence. So it's not attached to any funnel, it's actually attached to everything. So it's going to be a 6 month long email sequence where after somebody signs up for a freebie or gets on my email list, they're going to go through the initial like funnel. And then after that's over, then they're added to this 6 month long sequence where they're going to get a weekly email from me where I'm sharing my best content, my best value. I'm also going to be like naturally talking about like an offer if it's relevant, but it's really focused on nurturing my audience and being consistent in their inbox. Like I do send a lot of regular email broadcasts per week, but this allows me, like, if I don't feel like sending an email this week, at least I know they're going to still get one from me from this evergreen sequence. And really, the goal of it is just to build trust, just to get people more familiar with you, to nurture your audience, and to talk about your offers more. Because I feel like so many of us, we don't talk about everything we have available.
What is the balance between nurturing versus talking about offers? Because I feel like that's always kind of a delicate dance.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's a kind of important to think about the new lead or the new subscriber in terms of the email. Like if somebody is brand new um to your email list, like I always offer a tripwire after somebody signs up for a freebie, like, hey, you have 20 minutes to grab this at a deal. If you want it, fine. If you don't, that's cool too. I'm not going to hammer you about it. I'm just like presenting this to you as like, if you want to buy this right now, it's here. But then after that, when they get into an email sequence, I really focus on remembering that these people are brand new. They don't know me. Like if they just grabbed a freebie, they probably haven't looked at it yet. Because we all do that. We grab freebies and then they just sit in our inbox or we maybe save it or watch it for later. So I want to just build that connection. So typically I'm going to add a lot of value. I really like to lead with serving. So I give a lot of value. I definitely share my best resources, my best tips, and then I'll move into like, you signed up for this freebie a few weeks ago. So maybe it's been a few weeks. And now I'm going to naturally just say, like, if you're interested and you want to dig more into this, did you know that I have this course? So it's not like a heavy sell, like buy now. And sometimes I will have some evergreen urgency if I feel like it. Like I'll set up an evergreen countdown timer, like you have 72 hours to snag this, but usually I like to keep selling feeling more natural in emails.
Yeah, more like a conversation. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that resonates with a lot of people, right? Because nobody wants to consistently be presented with urgency and missing out and like have to make a decision right now. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that works really well for very specific offers. One of my final questions for you today is talk to me about some tools that you recommend. What are some things that you use or you recommend to your clients to use for marketing?
So probably my favorite tool right now, and I think it's great for anyone listening who's like, yeah, I want to do more evergreen. I love the idea of like utilizing my email list more and creating these funnels, is ConvertBox. I use ConvertBox a lot on my website and my blog content. So basically, it allows you to create a targeted like sidebar pop-up. It'll pop up like just to the side. You can also do like full pop-ups. You can do a top bar. So just to share a couple examples of how I've used ConvertBox, I have, for example, I have an offer called Launch It Like It's Hot. It's basically a resource library of templates for launching any kind of new offer. And I have a ConvertBox set up so that anytime somebody comes to the sales page, if it's their first time to visit the sales page, they will get a bar that pops down at the top that says, hey, you've unlocked, actually forget what it is. You've unlocked a 40%, or I don't know what it is, 40% discount. Um, and it's available for this amount of time. There's an actual real countdown timer. And then they can click on the button and it automatically has attached the coupon code for them to grab that. So it's only available the first time somebody lands on the page. just as like a, hey, you're here. Here's a, maybe this will get you to make it an easy yes to say yes right now to this evergreen offer. And then I also use ConvertBox to strategically target specific freebies on blog posts. So one example, I have a freebie called the 4 content marketing mistakes you're probably making. And so I have the ConvertBox set up so that any blog post that has the word content in the title, that will pop up and say like, hey, you're reading this blog post about content. I think you might be interested in grabbing this free resource.
Awesome. Excellent. So ConvertKit, correct?
Yes.
And this is a desktop app, a mobile app, or a combination?
It's a desktop app.
Okay. Awesome. And any other tools that you recommend? You mentioned one earlier about a hotspot. I don't recall the name, but you mentioned one earlier.
Hotjar. Hotjar allows you to kind of see a heat map of like, it also records videos. So you can actually see how somebody is interacting with your website or your pages, like what they're clicking on, what pages they're going to next. So I sometimes get in there and just watch a few videos and see like actually live how people have interacted with my website. That's especially good for sales pages. Like if you want to see if there's some section of your sales page where people are kind of dropping away or leaving, or if there's a section of your sales page where they're sitting there for a really long time, so they're really reading it, like what does that tell you? Like that's where you start to have to ask yourself some strategic questions about it. Another tool I love and I use for all of my funnels is Thrivecart. It also hosts all of my digital products and courses through Thrivecart Learn. I love it. I'm a big fan of lifetime deals. So actually ConvertBox is a lifetime deal as well. So I love if I can spend once on a tool and then use it as often and as much in my business as I want to, that is great. So yeah, I love a good lifetime deal to save money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tara, I think that you have an incredible amount of resources available for everyone. So I want to make sure that they know where to find you. What's the best place to connect with you and grab some of these great tools?
Yeah, definitely. My website is thetarareid.com. And if you go to my free resources page, I have all of my current freebies laid out there. There's a content planner for Notion. There's the introvert marketing webinar I talked about. There's the content marketing mistakes guide. I also have one about mapping out your own value ladder of offers. I can't remember what else is there. There's a lot of freebies and good stuff. And then if you get on my email list, that's definitely where I nurture and send the most content and share the best stuff.
Awesome. And I would love to know, what does the word gutsy mean to you?
For me, it means putting yourself out there. So getting a little bit uncomfortable. And it's kind of funny because I actually have a podcast episode where I was like, you don't have to push yourself outside your comfort zone every single day, which I think is true, especially for introverts. But I do think we need to push ourselves sometimes, maybe not every day. Like if doing reels is pushing you outside your comfort zone, then don't do them every day. But we do still have to push ourselves sometimes and make those gutsy moves.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for spending your time and your knowledge with us. I know marketing is a beast of its own, so we appreciate people like you that specialize in this particular topic that helps us along the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Look, I know that marketing can be a giant pain in the ass, but it can also be one of your greatest tools and resources to grow your business. So I hope that this episode helped to shine a light on the fact that you don't have to do it all. In fact, if you do less, more intentionally, it can work longer for you. I'd love to support you more as you grow your business, as you shift your mindset. So again, go to lauraora.com, click on Join the Gutsy Collective, and you can learn a lot more about what we're doing inside the group. Connect with me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find me using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.